ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay. To serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay. To serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay. To serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way.
What do you prefer? I look at you and mix it, the blend. What do you?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Perspectives. This is a live social media episode that is brought to you by the People's Action Movement. Of course, the People's Action Movement is a formidable party which is in opposition in St. Kitts and Nevis. And as a matter of fact, and as a matter of course, we are putting all the preparations in place to celebrate 60 years on January 19th next year. So we have a long history in St. Kitts and Nevis. This evening, we will be zeroing in on a topic that we hope would engage our young people, our school leavers, our college leavers, our university graduates. Of course, at this time of year, they are busy trying to find employment, trying to gain a footing in the world of work. But guess what? We, as a political party, we understand that it is very difficult now in St. Kitts and Nevis in the current in the current economic climate. Things are really very slow. That is the long and short of it. And so we are basically recommending to our young people to consider entrepreneurship. What opportunities there might be. How do you go about becoming an entrepreneur? And we believe that although people is hard work, we're not going to tell you it's not hard work, but we believe that if it is that the difficulties in getting into the the regular mainstream private sector and government is not an option right now, it is a good consideration to think about self-employment, entrepreneurship. So this evening we have someone who we consider a formidable expert in his own right. I'm talking about Mr. Noah Mills, who will guide us through this conversation as we look at opportunities for entrepreneurship and job creation in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so with that, I want to say welcome, Noah. Welcome to Perspectives. This is the 15th edition. It took you a long time to get here.
Thank you, thank you. I was supposed to actually be here on your birthday, remember
Yes,
that? But you said I wasn't a celebrity enough to share that.
No, you
night
didn't make the
with you.
grade.
But it's an honor. Firstly, I must commend you. The previous episodes, I've heard good reviews. I've heard that you've been compared to a few of the names I mentioned, Diane Sawyer, Robin Richards, and Connie Chung.
Oh, dear Lord.
And you're telling me you prefer someone else.
Yeah, I'm a Katie Couric fan.
Okay. But I consider this journalistic in many aspects, because not only are you here to massage topics, but as you said, target special clusters and provide information that they can utilize. I would like to, however, expand what you said, not only for school leavers, as in graduates or university graduates, but let's go back even to the third and the fourth formers to get them thinking at that stage that being employed either by the government or being employed by the private sector, those two options don't have to be the only options. You can actually create opportunities for yourself.
Absolutely. And so with that said, people might be wondering, well, is entrepreneurship really feasible? I mean, can I make a living? Is it easy? Is it hard work? So I want you to, from the get-go, kind of just set it up for us. What is entrepreneurship all about?
Well, actually, it depends on who you're speaking to. For example, some politicians, for example, like to throw around the term that entrepreneurship, small business, happens to be the engine of the economy. Other schools of thought, when criticizing any government, might say it's not necessarily the engine, but the enemy. Okay? They also use some other terms where some consider it the backbone or the bloodline, whereas others consider it a burden. The thing about small businesses, and if I may just define and operationalize what we're talking about, you have big companies here like TDC, Hosfords, and The Floor. Those are not the ones we're talking about. We're talking about sometimes a sole proprietorship.
The hairdressers.
The bars,
tailors,
the restaurants, the persons who might do some painting, the persons who might open a little mechanic shop. Those are the ones we're focusing on. Limited resources, 1 or 2 employees, never more than 10 employees. They don't quite own a massive part of the market share. However, oftentimes they have such unique ideas, services, products, or innovative processes that it's worth it to branch out on your own. Now, there are several benefits. The first, and what I did, I sort of created an acronym for each one of the things.
So you have one for benefits.
For benefits. And when we look at benefits, the B, for example, talks about business ownership. Because ideally, you get to own your own business. And that's the first thing. Oftentimes when you go to work for a company, you go to work for any government across the world, there's no certainty that by the time you leave that company, you will be a manager or a director or anything else. But the minute you start a company on your own, you are able to say you're part of that business owner. You're part of being able to control things. Now, with respect to the E in benefits, you're able to empower yourself. And again, if we look at the entire options out there, government might say they're creating opportunities to empower people. But there's no more beautiful feeling than empowering yourself, to be honest. And we move to the end, it gives you an opportunity to network. And what I mean by that, if you go work for a big company, you may never ever get the opportunity to interact with all of the employees, to interact with your customers. You're sitting in an air-conditioned office, you're not going out into the field. But owning a small business, that's one of the benefits. You get to interact, you get to learn. Customers are able to say, for example, if you have a small restaurant, I visited with one of my girlfriends last night, or as the case might be, one of your boyfriends last night, and I absolutely enjoyed that experience. Okay, we then move to the other E in benefits, which is equity. Now that's a tough one. It's a double-edged sword, and you'll see me bring it up again when I talk about challenges. But equity means that you actually own. If it's a sole proprietorship, it can be a partnership, but still a small business. So you can have shared equity. But it means that the business is yours. You can dictate to some degree the direction that the business goes. If you're working for a big company and they have this strategic or global vision, it's difficult for you to influence that sometimes. And oftentimes after working for a larger company, people leave because of that and say, hey, I was sort of restricted in what I wanted to do, and they branch out. Owning a small business also gives you a great sense of independence. And when I say independence, I'm not saying you could do what you want, because there's still guidelines, for example, when it comes to customer service. But in some areas, people are able to wake up if they wish at 9 or 10 o'clock, okay, as opposed to going to the mill from 8 to 4 on a daily basis. You're in control of managing your schedule. So that's one of the, we're down now to the I. The T in business, in benefits, forgive me, is you and your idea, you're able to transform a specific space. Some of the ideas, if we go back to those guys who created Mac, IBM and all of these things, they started in a garage. And they were able to transform an industry. Look at what's happening to Amazon. Where's AI going to take us? All of these were little ideas. Somebody sat down and said, it's different. Some people are going to like it, some people are not, but I am going to be strong enough to take that plunge. And of course, there's a satisfaction when you start seeing it growing, when you start getting those good reviews from your customers, when you're being recommended to now expand not only to St. Kitts, but perhaps Nevis or go around the Caribbean. Then you can see the business, a small idea that I had, has now transformed into something big and beautiful. So those are some of the benefits.
Excellent. I'm glad you took the time early in the conversation to talk about the benefits, because sometimes we need to give people hope. And I think there's a sort of fear here that if you branch off in business and you fail, people would look at you with scorn. We around here we give people, we easily give people nickname, we label people, and we are not a culture that is accustomed to being on our own. I don't know, and perhaps it has something to do with our education system, because we don't properly prepare our young people to take ownership of anything. So while entrepreneurship for some people may be exciting, it will, for me, I'm just looking at it from a macro level. It may take a while for our young people to warm up to the idea. As you mentioned, and of course I want you to kind of defend your turf and say why it is the way you are, and you just did quite well. But even talking about AI, I looked at the news this morning on one of the networks, and they were actually saying that in some schools now, they're trialing a fully AI classroom so that they're not teachers. And interestingly, one of the young people in the classroom was interviewed, and he was asked how his experience. He said, well, I'm learning from the person the next end, from the app, but I am also able to use that knowledge to infuse it into what I'm learning. And as the report went on, they actually showed a couple of instances where some of the young people have already done projects using that same knowledge. And one person did something with Airbnb that he said, and this is like a 9-year-old child, he said he made $10,000 in 5 months.
Wow.
So, wow. And I'm saying here you have young people already being so futuristic about what it is they can do in business at 9 and 10 years old. And maybe I should juxtapose that by saying maybe all is not lost in St. Kitts and Nevis, because our robotic team has just traveled to Greece, I gathered, and I know in the past they have acquitted themselves well when they have traveled. So, so talking about AI and opportunity there, perhaps is going to take us maybe to a separate conversation on another time. But it is not easy to start a business. And to tell a young person to start a business coming out of school, you might get a couple of expletives, because, as I said, I don't think that we are fully prepared to do it. I mean, and I've seen people selling cupcakes and so on, but we want to move beyond that. I mean, we want to see our people doing more than just the ordinary. So here is where I want to ask you about some quick wins off the top of your head, so that if there's a young person who is passing by this channel tonight and saying, well, let me stop and hear what it is they're offering as a suggestion, because it can be easy to set up a business and get all of those benefits that you just enumerated just off the cuff.
Well, a few things. One, we'll talk about attributes that they'll need to have to be successful. Two, we'll also talk about challenges. But just this week, I was reading a document that states that the owner of TikTok, older guy, and he's one of the leading billionaires in China now, he criticized the education system, asking and charging them, saying that the curricula across whichever school, subjects, whatever, they're preparing students to work for people. They're preparing students to be paid a salary instead of paying themselves. So that's where that's where the interesting thing comes from. When it comes to you self-assessing, for example, in terms of the attributes of a successful person, because there's the daunting statistic that in the first year,
the failure rate is so high.
Correct. There's rumors saying that it's almost 90%. Statistically, they're saying it's about 20-25%. But you never know if you will be in that that segment. But what again I did, I created a little acronym to walk us through.
Yeah.
And I called that acronym creativity. And we're looking at the attributes. I think first and foremost, the C stands for one of two things: courage. You cannot simply think that it's not going to work out, so I'm not going to do it.
Well, certainly in this atmosphere, we need courage, because we sometimes we hear about, two people could walk into the development bank and have fantastic proposals, and one gets through and the other don't get through, sometimes because of the color of the hat. So carry on. It does need courage.
The color of the hat or other instruments. It's not only the hat.
A lot of,
okay?
yeah.
Color of other things.
Yes.
I've even heard of stories where you would sit with the bank, submit a proposal, the funding is denied, but then 3-4 months down the road, you see the same business concept being implemented. So it takes courage to branch out.
It does.
It also takes curiosity, because if you do not challenge what is status quo and say, it can be done and I can do it, you're never ever going to try. And it's interesting, when I do training sometimes and we are talking about creativity, people say, well, no, yes, you have to think outside of the box. I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're thinking outside the box, you're still thinking relative to a box. Why don't we just get rid of the box?
I've heard that too.
Just
Throw
get rid
away
of
the
the
box.
box.
Yeah.
Exactly. Throw away the box. And whatever comes, we think about it. Okay? With respect to the creativity, the acronym, for me the R, going back to the courage, is risk tolerance. You have to be able to. It's turbulent.
But you're young. You're 18 years if you finish CFBC, because these days they're going to college at 16, or maybe you're leaving university at 20, 22, 23. I mean, what assets do you have? You literally have to ask mommy and daddy if they could lend you the land paper.
I understand, but you might have an expensive watch, you might have an expensive telephone, and that you can use to barter. But if you're persuasive enough to sell that idea, it doesn't necessarily take a bank to start your funding. It could be even your parents. It could be even your friends. But you must be willing to take that risk. And similarly, surround yourself with people who are not averse to risk. Because there's market turbulence, there are vicious competitors, there are other external forces that we'll talk about a little bit. So you must be risk tolerant.
Okay. So before you leave that risk tolerant point, how important, if that is the case, for people to pool resources? There was a time in St. Kitts when there were a lot of partnerships. Back and Kelly comes to mind, and some other established entrepreneurs who lasted a couple decades. We're not seeing a lot of that now. Is there no room for partnerships anymore, so that maybe two young people can decide, you know what, you are the IT person, I am the marketing person. Together we can bring our intellectual and other resources together and form a business out of it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because for the last, I would say maybe 10 years or so, SK and Vibes comes to mind. And that was a partnership.
Okay.
And it was a partnership of young persons who came from Sandy Point as well. And it still exists today.
Right.
There's also the saying that you're going to hear that a partnership is a
leaky ship.
So you hear that so many times over and over, you begin to convince yourself it cannot work. Obviously, if you're going to choose a partnership and you're going to pool resources, and in often circumstances, we need to pool resources. Sometimes as an independent entity, like you said, I might have the creative idea, but you have the resources.
Yeah.
I think that takes us to the next letter, which is the E, that deals with ethics. We are supposed to be honest with each other if it's a partnership. We are supposed to be honest with the products and services we offer to our clients. And if partnerships are built on transparency and ethics and things of that nature, I think partnerships can work. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a long-time partnership. It can be just for a specific project.
Yeah.
It can be for the first 2 years. And then there's an exit clause written into the agreement where I thank you, you ask for your 40% on the equity that you had invested, and we feel good from there.
Right.
In terms of creativity, it's a T, which is tenacity, because it's hard work.
It is.
There are times as a small business owner myself that you see other people having fun on the beach. You see people going to a concert. You see people going to, for argument's sake, Coney Island. And you tell yourself, yes, I would like to, but you just can't.
Got work to do.
There are times when you're going to have to forego the salary that you allocated for yourself because of the unpredictable nature of the market. You just can't pay yourself for this month or maybe next month. But that is where you're supposed to be tenacious and determined to say, hey, this will work. And when I was growing up, Barker and Kelly, they were famous for not only being clean and nice products, affordable prices, but the service. The two gentlemen were so very pleasant that it made that experience absolutely brilliant. Now, in terms of creativity, we move to the I. You must take that initiative. You must say, I will do it. And we have a tendency to procrastinate, to postpone. And after we spin around 3-4 times, we realize 10 years have passed.
What if you could stick a pin there, because what I find interesting with that part of it though is that I know they say imitation is the best form of flattery, but I find that you start an ice cream shop around the corner because you know after the football match there's going to be high traffic, and you work that corner for 4 months, and on the 5th month there's somebody on the next side doing the very same thing.
I hear you, and it may not be the same thing, but they might start an enterprise that they're cannibalizing your sales. I have witnessed in the market, oftentimes I just drive around, look at businesses, how they operate to learn. And there is this bar in Nevis right now that hosts an event almost midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday. And you know, for argument's sake, that other operations like barbecues will tend to go out on the weekend. This operation drawing about 150 people, and then this other barbecue operation decide they're not going to wait, so they'll have the event
The same time.
right next to it on the Wednesday, and then there is nothing on the Thursday, they go to the Friday operation. So it's not only a like product, but sometimes it's competing products that would come on that same corner and take away your money. And don't forget, and it's sad, we have a culture here sometimes where we forget that if you sold me that lollipop or that ice cream or whatever, that I got something. So when I see you build on a room, or when I see you change your car, or when I see you, whatever the case is.
You're going too fast, out of my money.
Correct. And I'm forgetting that you actually gave me something in exchange.
Exactly.
So it's a culture, and that goes back, like I said, to the tenacity, where you have to be strong enough. And sometimes those used to be customers will withdraw, or they will also
spend less.
Spend less. Some will withdraw totally.
True.
Spend less, withdraw, or begin to spread negative word of mouth.
Right.
Boy, are you going to go over there to support her?
Yeah.
You didn't see she changed
the
her
car.
shoes, and then she bought her this and all sorts of things. And that's our money. That's all. No, it's not my money anymore because you sold me the products. Okay? The V in creativity as an attribute is vision. It's vision in two ways. Vision as in long term, and vision as in thinking about it. So creatively and innovatively, your product or your service is so different, so differentiated, that there's demand out there for it. It might be the way you package it. It's the same product. It might be the way you package it. Yes, everyone barbecues, but how are you seasoning your or what sort of interaction? There's a chap in Nevis who works on the strip right now, and they're about 8 bars. And there's a specific bar.
I'm hearing now that Nevis strip is nicer than St. Kitts strip, but that's an aside. You don't have to comment.
I think I will have to agree. I will have to agree. And there is a specific bar where there's one bartender, where he's so wonderful as it relates to customer service. That bar is always popping. He will see you walk by and say, Lavon, how you doing? I hope everything is all right. And suddenly, because of that relationship, he's
stop and get something.
The others, they're just waiting for you to come in. So it may not be the product, it may not be the service, insurance or whatever, but it might actually be the customer service that deals with
Personal
it.
touch.
Okay, with respect to the other I, we're talking about imagination. Your idea might be very, very unique, but like you said, someone comes, set up right to you, next to you, selling. So are you going to steady, or are you going to start imagining different things? And we can look at the world changing. We have 869 and all of those other businesses delivering food. That never happened. You see what I'm getting at? Soon we might have a drone.
True. Dropping it on your veranda.
That's imagination. So that's what we're talking about when we say imagination. Another attribute that you should have is willingness to accept training. That's the T. We are never ever too old to learn. And from every single interaction...
But it's more than accepting training, you know. It's putting what you learn into play.
You're correct.
Because too many people go training after training, month after month after, and you see no difference in their performance.
You're correct. And I dare say that you can't blame that person only. You must blame... blame has a negative connotation, so let's take away blame.
Yeah.
You must allocate some of the responsibility to the company,
organization,
to the managers, to the company. Because if I come out all excited from a training session and I go back to a manager who's very disrespectful, or I go back to a culture, an organizational culture that resists change, after 3-4 weeks, I'm going to go back to the same old khaki pants. Okay? So I agree with you, must willingly pursue, accept, and apply the training. And the last one is yourself. You must have belief in yourself. You must have belief in yourself if you're going to be a success. Because people are going to say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
From the minute you start, oh, she playing big now, whatever the case is. So you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
And with believing in yourself, you have to constantly assess. So as you yield certain results, another way again, you assess and say, where am I? Critique yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
The population is small though. We live in a, well, the last census said around 55,000, maybe 56.
Yes.
And so it is a real challenge to be creative in an enterprise. You know, how many people would you really be able to get to support you, and on what basis? I mean, are they going to be, you know, are you going to be able to grow the business? And it's almost like there's so much and no further you could grow a business given the size of the population. And perhaps that is one of the things that scare people the most from becoming entrepreneurship. Because yes, I love the benefits that you started with, the freedom. You could wake up in the morning and you know, I mean,
and I think you've experienced that with
yes,
me.
I'm hearing, I like when I hear these influencers on Instagram with their videos when they say, you know, while they're sleeping, money is going in the bank or something to that extent. There's a phrase to that extent. But the reality in a small economy is such that, man, some days you're up and a lot of days you're down. And when you have to add to it all of the forces, you know, the politics and the fallout, if, like you say, if people say that you're going too fast and all of that, it is a big ask to ask young people to jump in the ring and become entrepreneurs. It is a big ask.
Let's talk about some of the challenges.
Okay.
And again, I've come up with an easy acronym, which is challenges. The C is cash. Where you're going to get the cash from, where you're going to get the credit from. And oftentimes, persons, when you think about branching out and doing it into your own, you go to a bank, the first thing they're going to say, well, who are you? Okay? Instead of assessing the viability of the idea, other factors come into play. An invisible hand, so to speak. So getting that credit, getting that capital, getting that cash flow, the C for challenges, that is part of it. Now, the H is...
Don't go so fast yet, because as you talk about it, I'm reminded of a number of programs that were ran a couple of years ago at Development Bank. And I remember having a conversation with one person. I said, but give me an idea of some of the loans that were part of this program. Because I was trying to prove in my mind whether or not the bank by its own action was really setting up people for failure. Because again, dialing back to my previous observation about, you know, operating in a small market, I heard that, you know, there were people who were maybe cake makers, bus drivers. And so, yes, you have a program and perhaps that was meant to inject some sort of, you know, activity in the economy. But you give 25 people loans to make cakes and to, you know, to bake and to cater. and you give another 50 for bus drivers. I mean, how when you do that, how are these people going to be able to compete successfully, to be able to pay you back? So then my next question to the bank official was so if you by your own action kind of creating adverse competition for the very people who you're lending to, so how are they able to repay you? So cash is one thing, but I think and perhaps a part of all of this preparation towards becoming an entrepreneur has to be an opportunity for some basic kind of training before you actually get into it, so that people don't get lost in the fact that, boy, you know, I just get $20,000 to start this business, and next thing you know, they go and buy some shoes and some whatever else before they apply to the startup capital in the business. So to me, there also needs to be some education about how you use that cash.
I agree. And not only education, but there must be a support system. And perhaps this is an idea that you and I can pursue. I once sent a proposal to some financial institutions. I got with that said institutions were paying so much money in delinquent loan recovery. Mm-hmm. And let's say $500,000 a year. And I'm making up this figure just for emphasis. Mm-hmm. I wrote to the establishment and say, hey, if you're losing $500,000, mm-hmm. pay me $200,000 a year, and I would work with all of those businesses to help them with marketing, help them with accounts, help them with customer service, inventory management, mm-hmm. and in mm-hmm. that way they are going to be making money to help pay back the loan.
Absolutely.
And it's also simultaneously cutting down your loss mm-hmm. by $300,000. Mm-hmm. They looked at my hair perhaps and said, well, it's okay, and it never happened. So not only the education, mm-hmm. and oftentimes they would tell you, well, they are loan officers. But how many times do you walk around and see these loan officers as part of their regular job, their roles and responsibilities, visiting the same little bakery, jumping on the bus to experience mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and also allow some cash to turn over.
Yeah.
So it's more than education, it's that support system, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. that dedicated and concerted support system mm-hmm. that oftentimes is lacking. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now we're back to challenges and we're talking about hesitation. I already said, don't hesitate. Mm-hmm. Jump in. Mm-hmm. There are going to be sharks out there and some of us will die, but some of us will survive. The A is being able to adapt. Okay? You're also going to be faced with doing all of the administration of your business. You have to suddenly become a marketing person, mm-hmm. an accountant, a customer service. And another A is alienation. Oftentimes, and it's sad, many times because of your political affiliation, you get overlooked. Mm-hmm. Be it for opportunities for funding, be it for opportunities for your company being engaged. Mm-hmm. For argument's sake, mm-hmm. if you're a caterer and you're seen to be on the wrong side of the fence,
yes.
okay, you don't get an opportunity mm-hmm. to work. Mm-hmm. And if there's a big event, maybe a CPL or maybe a Coney Island or whatever, although you possess the other attributes, mm-hmm. the products and services, you may be overlooked. Yeah. Music festival, carnival, mm-hmm. whatever the case is. And that's the A we am talking about in challenges, alienation. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're going to lack resources when you're starting off. You're going to lack resources, you're going to lack customers, and you're going to face liability. It's one of the L's.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? Of course, depending on the structure of your business, you could pass that liability over to a public entity mm-hmm. if you incorporate your business. But many times the small business owners do not think about incorporation. Yeah. The other L in challenges, go ahead.
I was thinking about the tax responsibility once you incorporate your business. So I think people would try to avoid taxes if they can in a small business, because the average person would say, well, I'm not going to be working so hard to give back the government. What is the tax structure? 30-something%? 33%. So, and it takes time too. It takes time for you to get to that place where if the business is really growing, then you say, you know what, I am going to move from an unincorporated company to incorporating my company. By that time, you probably need a lot more stuff. You need to maybe recapitalize your business.
Correct.
Maybe even sell shares if you wish.
Hire accountant.
Right. So
Okay.
it's quite a step up to reach to that stage. But
The other element challenge is you being a late mover. Oftentimes the other person's doing what you're doing. So they have networks, they have some cash in the bank. And here am I as a small business owner thinking, boy, there's 6 other persons out there doing. Although my idea might be differentiated somewhat, as a late mover, how can I shake and make entrance into the market? That's going to
But
be...
would you recommend that though? And again, it comes back to your earlier point about creativity. Because if I were unsure that my product at this particular stage could make a difference in the market with other competitors that were already there, I would kind of sidestep the idea and move to something else. Because again, and I think this is what most people, when you talk about doing business in a small island, and they ask you, what's the population? And you say, I'm like people say, well, you know, that's the size of a small town somewhere in the U.S. So it's a hard sell, and again, it brings me back to the place where I was saying earlier on that here you have so many people doing the same thing, so that even if you're an early starter and you started out first, by the time people think that you're doing well and they come in, it would mean that your profits are going to dwindle, because people are cutting into the same customer base that you're depending on.
Correct.
So it's a challenge.
Let's move to the end. You won't have the networks that I have if I've been there before.
That's correct.
Yes. So I have certain preemptive advantages that you don't have, because I know the farmers are going to give me their vegetables before I've been dealing with them 5 years, and you're trying to say, well, when are you bringing my peppers? When are you bringing my tomatoes? Because I need those to be fresh to make burgers.
Yeah.
So you have a challenge here. Negotiate it as well. You're new. No one knows about you. Why should we give you a credit line? Why should we give you a discount of 20%? We know these other businesses long-standing, good credit history. So you don't have that sort of influence, you don't have that sort of negotiating power. And that also could be a challenge. Now, let me step back up. Or I could look at the G. Let's go to the G, the growth opportunities. Because here am I saying, consider small businesses. You're not going to be the only one. And then we talk, another slide that I'm going to ask to be shown is the role, not right now, of course, but the role of government in creating those opportunities for small businesses. And when I say creating, I don't mean talking about them. Yes, we have functional departments, divisions, or ministries, but do we see reports that say on an annual basis, there were 200 new businesses, small businesses started? And of the 12,000 that we had before, 5,000, whatever it is, well, only 2% failed. How can we tap into that data, those statistics?
If it is being captured at all.
And if it's being captured at all, if someone desires to have it released.
That's right.
Because one would assume that it's being captured somewhere. I don't know if it's being merged, but they could check different inland revenue, social security, and see what's happening. But if it's being captured, and if captured, is it going to be released to the public? Because it therefore shows that there is support. Okay? And by the flip side, the E for the challenges would be external factors, and that's where government would come in. Another external factor that would hit and did hit small businesses would be natural disasters, COVID. So in your fiscal prudence, your managing of your resources, apart from salary, you need to remember, as a small business owner, you need to push some under the cushion, the mattress. And I mean, the bank. Don't keep any money under the mattress. Let me just make sure I say that clearly, okay? But you need to ensure, because of the unpredictability of the marketplace in the future, and that's an external factor, okay? Another E again, the last one in challenges would be employees. You as a small business owner, do you have the magnetism to recruit and keep solid employees? Because obviously we are leaving school. I'm thinking about going to work for a big company, a bank, a TDC. You see what I'm getting at? A flow. So if you wish to have two educated persons and you see them have the personality, why are they going to migrate and go toward you? You see what I mean? And then the last one, of course, would be supply chain management and sustainability. Because we did speak about that. If you need to open a restaurant, what's going to happen? The farmers have relationships with me already. How are you going to get them to supply vegetables to you? And being fresh, being healthy, those are ways of differentiating your meals from mine. And with all of those now, I guess the biggest challenge of all would be sustainability. Are you going to be doing enough for your business to be profitable and last over time? And you know, there's an interesting philosophy, a cultural philosophy, and I wish sometimes we would stop and think about it. Where people say the Chinese don't work for themselves, they work for their grandchildren. But we as a people often are very materialistic. We like to dress good, we like to go on expensive vacations, we like to have nails and fancy cars, and using up that wealth instead of allowing the wealth.
And nothing is wrong with that, but you must set aside something.
Correct, under the mattress. Old people would say under the mattress, okay? I am, of course, advising that you take it to the bank and you develop some sort of high interest, high yield savings or long-term plan, okay? So those are some of the challenges.
Really good ones to take on board. But as you were speaking, it just crossed my mind suddenly. Where can we fit in a small business association? I had a conversation recently. I attended an event. It wasn't quite recently, some months ago. That was organized by the Chamber for Women in Business. And when I looked across the room, there was about maybe 40 women, if not more. I think it was a breakfast event. And I asked the question of one of the chamber officials there, well, how many people in this room are paying membership dues to the chamber? Because clearly, I think there's a particular threshold in terms of the dues and perhaps the profitability of the company. And she said to me, probably none. And I said, but the opportunity is there for the chamber perhaps to have adjusted their threshold, and with the absence of a small business association, try to create some other lower tier in the organization, and perhaps, well, I don't know, I'm just talking, but perhaps they're...
I don't like the term lower.
Perhaps
a different tier.
Perhaps their what you call that thing in their remit would not allow them to do that. But I'm just saying that since the absence of the small business association, there's really no other umbrella organization that are really looking out for the interests of these small to medium enterprises. And I don't know if there isn't an opportunity that maybe even some private citizens can perhaps get together, pool their resources together and say, look, we want to bring our small and medium enterprises under an umbrella and offer them these services. Because I think that is right now, that is the missing link. You remember when we had a thriving small business association under in the 80s under the People's Action Movement, NRP coalition, when there actually used to even be some sort of queen show, and I mean it was so that you kept the businesses engaged, and there was this there was almost this I don't know, this energy about the businesses, because everybody wanted to have a contestant in, have wanted to sponsor a contestant.
Did you enter?
I never did enter that. I had no interest in being on the stage. but I think and I don't know if maybe as we look, well, I'm no economist, but I have a good sense of what happens in a lackluster economy, and perhaps with the absence and the void of a thriving small business association, there's a link between what is happening now in terms of the sluggishness and the dullness in the economy, and maybe we need to, as I said, look at prospects of going back to those days where we could have an engaging small business association again.
Let me just jump in here. I agree with you. Part of the challenge, I think, is perception. The chamber, and I'm not negatively assessing the chamber in any form or fashion, but there's a perception out there that it's for big businesses, a certain type of business, and small business owners may not think that they're welcome. That's the perception out there. I'm not saying right or wrong. I haven't done any empirical research. I think the government, and this is where now we can start to talk about the role of governments in business.
Right.
And if I may, before I go there, let me go back to the challenges, the E, which was external factors. One of the external factors happens to be competition. And we've talked about it before in this little presentation. But let me just talk about double-edged swords. We mentioned Coney Island, which was positioned as an entertainment-based opportunity for persons to get jobs.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a small business owner who happens to have a bar and restaurant, and he screamed just today. He screamed, and he didn't scream as if he was happy. He screamed. I asked him, well, how are things going? And he said, they're tougher than before. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, Coney Island is here. And it took him having to explain what was happening to me for me to make that link. He said the families who would normally, even if he were to just focus on the weekend, come there with 2 children and have some pasta, have some chicken and fries and everything else, because they have that disposable income that they would normally spend there. They're now reallocating that disposable income and going to Coney Island. So it therefore means there's a direct adverse effect
on small businesses,
in that space. And mind you, I know research has been done, but it could be other spaces as well. What happened to the nightclubs? You see what I mean? So nightclubs, restaurants, bars, all of those could very well be suffering.
Maybe in the church collection for, if you may stretch it, but carry on.
So, and that is where you spoke about small business association. That is where I think the government needs to be the catalyst. Because for one, there's a small business unit in St. Kitts. And there's another one, I think it's called SEDU in Nevis.
But no, with the greatest respect, all of these organizations, they're in this enclave somewhere in a nice office, and you don't ever. There is a lack in communication in terms of people understanding, one, how they function, who they function for, how to access what they're offering. Because there is no PR, there is no marketing. If you know, you know. But if you don't, you don't. And so, yes, I've heard about all of these associations, but they're not actively engaging in any form. They don't have a platform like this. You don't hear them in the media, and so you miss them. I am sure. Well, you do a lot of research, and I'm sure if you were to ask somebody randomly, stand up on 4th Street one day and ask, have you ever heard about some of these organizations? 90% of people will probably tell you no. So do they really want to help?
The mandate is to help. We could agree on that. They are in existence and they are being paid to help. Okay? And again, I chose to use another acronym, government. So I've spelled out government for persons to see how they can
Okay.
help. Okay?
This would be
So
interesting.
government is supposed to provide the guidance. When we look at CNN reports unemployment. CNN reports, and I'm not praising CNN over Fox, it's
Yeah.
NBC and CNN and all of
Yeah.
them.
Well, after all,
Unemployment.
they're not sponsoring our program, but carry on.
Okay, so these international networks report statistics. So the average family could sit at home and understand what a government is doing for small businesses, for families, for individuals who go out to work. Okay, so governments are supposed to provide that guidance. That's the G, as to how to start that. Forgive me. How to start that small business and how to sustain it. As you said, to stay in an air-conditioned room and wait to see if anything happens. I don't know if there's an online source that you and I can go and see a report as to the achievements, the successes, the milestones, things of that nature. The O in government means that they're supposed to provide opportunities, economic opportunities on a consistent basis. So they're supposed to be doing the research to see, well, in this specific niche, that small space, there is room for 12, not 24. So you don't simply reward people because they may have voted for you one way or the other. But with the solid research, that niche market needs 12 entrepreneurs. Identify those persons, provide the training, provide funding and everything else. And that's the V, venture capital. Because you just said it might be a daunting task to even think about where they're going to be getting the money from. So, soft loans. You see what I mean? Grants.
Grants.
There's so many grants out there, and I've heard there are times when st.kitts would lose an opportunity
Because they're
for
not
a grant.
accessing. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how these things work, these big international organizations, they raise these funds to be allocated, let's say across the Caribbean and Latin America. And based on parameters such as population and income and per capita and whatever, they allocate, let's say, Jamaica is bigger, so they might get $1 million US. St. Kitts is smaller, so we might get 50,000. But if we don't use that 50,000, it means that when they're reallocating in the next
get
cycle,
less or
they're
none.
going to get less or none. So I think governments are responsible for doing the research and educating small business owners and potential owners of areas, not only for small interests, but also for grants and things of that nature. Now, the E in government, engagement, citizen re-engagement. And I think oftentimes governments may not be doing the best job here. While driving around today, I was listening to what seems to be a debacle about ungraded CXC courses.
Yeah.
I think it behooves any government to be absolutely transparent about such things, because the negative effects are plentyfold. We have, I could imagine, some students who may have done science subjects. I've heard it's centered around SBAs. I haven't seen any report, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you've heard the
I've
same
heard
thing.
the same thing.
So assuming I was a science student, I'm doing SBAs for agricultural science, integrated physics, chemistry, biology. Those 5 courses, I needed to either go to CFB or go off to university. What's happening to me right now?
You're in limbo.
Those 5 courses, I needed to go and apply in the private industry or the government, public,
Or the college.
to get a job. Okay? Could you imagine the psychological trauma that not only these students are going through, but even their parents? And I don't know, is it St. Kitts and Nevis only, or is it happening across the Caribbean? Do you know that?
I don't get that sense. I think it's localized.
Okay? And if it's localized, that makes it even worse. It means that we are unique.
Aren't we?
Well, My good friend Lord Cuts only in St. Christopher.
There you go.
So that is the engagement I'm talking about, where we need to engage people on a regular basis to ascertain, are you going to think about academics, going off to university, going to work directly, or do you want to start a small business? I am supposed to be able to go somewhere on St. Kitts and Nevis and see that on a regular basis. Every single year upon graduation, data are showing us that 25% go off to university, 12%, and I'm including the college years university, 60% go to work in the private, 10% go to work in the public, and then 7% desire to create a small business. So where are those data points? Are they being collected, and are they being used to develop policy?
Well, there you go. There you go.
Let's move to our governments are supposed to provide resources, not only air conditioned or offices and personnel only, but funding and networking and training on a consistent basis. And not only training, I have a fundamental challenge that I've professionally and respectfully turned down training opportunities at times. Because I tell the potential client, I guarantee you, the 30 persons will leave all excited. They're going to be smiling, we had a good time, and everything is boy. But then if you don't have implementation strategies, if you don't have assessment strategies after that training, you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Now, I remember a small group that we're coincidentally in, we would have organized a training session where 13 small businesses came to the venue, and we offered training on money management, budgeting, pricing, and other things. And then we are now, I think, developing a mentorship program where whoever we assign to, we can touch base and say, well, how is the business going? And
because there needs to be follow-up.
correct. And sometimes for me, if the client isn't building in that component into it, I say, well, perhaps you should consider someone else. And it's not selfish. It's, I think you're doing your employees a disservice if you're just training. Similarly, if governments are training small business owners or potential business owners,
And then sort of made the sea of sharks.
exactly, I think that's doing more harm than good. Because now you're whetting the appetite, telling them there is so much out there for you, and then they just can't get it.
Yeah.
The E in government, it's for networking.
The
Yes.
N rather.
The N,
Yeah.
yes. Well, there's an E in it as well, but you're correct.
Yeah.
The N for networking. And the grants, like Canary, there is this Caribbean organization that it has so many success stories. You go on the YouTube and you see in the Windward Islands specifically, they are growing sea moss waist height. So they're not going out there randomly to pick it. They're walking in the waist, in the ocean, up the waist, and they're picking it. They're creating the farms right there. And I've often wondered, why is it we cannot get in that networking database to have those specialists come on a regular basis, identify the fishing areas, the Date Bay and the Sandy Point and the Old Road and the Keon or wherever else, the new town.
Keon has a beach?
You can. You don't need a beach. You just walk down by the bay. Come on, Lavon. You used to walk down by the bay. Ali Bay. Ali Bay was not a beach.
But you said Sandy Point, so I could understand.
Yeah,
I
Ali
know
Bay.
to access the bay, Sandy Point.
Oh,
yes.
the bay. Okay,
Yes.
then. Okay, good. So the networking is absolutely important. You see what I mean?
Yes.
And then the networking also advises these small business owners of the cycle. When is the opportunity going to come back again? If I am in that database and they're sending out emails, I am going to know there's an opportunity for a $10,000 grant. But if I am not open to that network, it's not going to happen. Okay? They must give me the M, market access. and someone needs to sit down. I heard the other day, and I saw something being passed around about a farmer who couldn't get watermelon sold.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was very, very tough.
Yeah.
I heard some other things why he couldn't get the watermelon sold. I heard certain farms are getting preferential treatment.
Oh, there you go.
Okay? But again, are we looking at the number of farmers as small business owners? Are we looking at what they're producing,
planting,
what
exactly.
they're producing?
Yes.
Are we then assessing the potential market across hotels, across grocery stores, across households and everything else, and putting some scientific analysis into it?
To minimize that kind of wastage.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we talking to them about cycles and crop rotation to say, hey, you know, right now we are seeing the data telling us that you can only access 10% of the market. It seems as if you're producing a 15% supply. So can you cut that quota and shift into another product? That's the role of government, I think. Okay, we move into the end, and they're supposed to be able to help them navigate tough times. Tough times.
Like now.
Tough times. Governments are supposed to instill confidence in small business owners, irrespective of the industry. I repeat, irrespective. Yes, we will have seasonality, but are you trying to tell me that when seasons shift, I should close down? You must offer me.
I heard a story that a businessman approached the Prime Minister about, you know, he has been in business for 20 years, and he approached the Prime Minister about how slow and sluggish business had become in recent times. And he was asked by the Prime Minister which St. Kitts he's living in. Carry on now.
The T, we spoke a little about that, taxes earlier. I don't know if it's true. I don't even know if I could empirically test it. But I've heard that the Chinese government actually provides very, very low interest loans in large amounts to their citizens to go out.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
I've also heard that part of the loan package is that every X years you need to bring some Chinese to whichever country you're operating in.
Oh, okay.
So what you realize if you look across St. Kitts and you look at the small business owners in the villages, what we used to call the mom and pop shops that used to thrive. We are now seeing in Sandy Point, for argument's sake, there is a Chinese grocery store and there's a Chinese restaurant. Look at Old Road.
But have we lost, because to me that is an erosion of culture, you know, because the mom and pop shops were a cemented part of our Caribbean culture, of our island culture. And so the question could be asked, is government facilitating the erosion of culture?
Indirectly. And the economy. And livelihoods.
And when we start to talk about the Asian
and mind you, let me stop you for a second if I may. Once any nationality is coming to St. Kitts and Nevis as an investor and they're doing it the correct way, I praise that.
Me too.
Let me just make sure. I don't want anyone to
brings employment and exactly.
Yes, okay?
Exactly.
It introduces us to new products and everything.
And maybe new culture too.
So I am not please do not misconstrue that we are saying not to bring anyone here, because some of our friends and family members are in other countries helping to support us. So we are not saying that in the least, okay? But when these governments can provide such lucrative benefits to...
But I hear you, no, but it must not be at the expense of our own people. And
no, I meant like if China can do it, we have to do it as well.
We're talking about on a global level.
Okay.
We're talking about on a global level. Because at the end of the day, if somebody has to sell their property, because by selling their property, and you hinted at it earlier on, the fact that we are not passing down wealth to our children. We are so hamstrung that we are making money today and we're eating everything today, right? And so if somebody is in such a dire strait that they have to sell their property to maybe a Chinese business owner, and by selling that property they figure that, well, I probably have another 20 years to live. I could live off of this $200,000 in the meantime, because by their calculation their business would not make that money in that time. It is sad. So it's something that really has to be carefully considered. And if we're talking about the cultural dynamics, effectively my grandchildren and yours, whenever you get them, would not be able to experience this village shop life.
But shouldn't it hurt, Laveran?
It is hurting. It is hurting already.
And I don't mean even financially only. Shouldn't it hurt when you walk down the street and reminisce and say, you remember when Miss Proctor used to be there?
Of course.
And Miss Gums
and Mr.
used
Paul.
to be there. And Mr. Paul and Mr. Brooks and everything else. And they're now gone.
And who has replaced them doesn't look like... Anyway.
I saw a post the other day on Facebook saying that we should consider changing the name of 4th Street.
To what street? Asian Avenue?
Asian Avenue.
Was that the name for you?
Asian Avenue.
Well, I'm not... You'll have to... You seem as if you want another invitation to come back. And I'm going to officially extend an invitation to you now. Because that is something that really... And I don't think that Kittitians are sitting up and realizing what is happening. And I know people might say, well, it's happening all across the Caribbean. But, he who controls economic power, fill in the blanks at the back of that.
I agree with you.
Fill in the blank at the back of that. So, effectively, at the rate we're going to become a country where we are employees and not employers.
You're correct.
And so we are talking about the opportunity for young people to get in entrepreneurship. Yes, it's hard work. Yes, it's challenging work. But you can get through because we are in a good place to encourage our young people. And lo and behold, we are still challenged insofar as these opportunities are concerned. So it is really something that is worth considering and not sneezing at. And I really hope that we would begin to sit up and look at it, because that 4th Street analogy is a very serious one.
And again, government's responsible for ensuring that we begin to think from an entrepreneurial perspective to see how we can blend in. Okay? Now, someone just sent a message saying that we should have actually put up the meanings and the letters for acronyms. What I'll do, I'll give them to you so you can post them.
Oh, yeah, I can probably post them on the...
No problems at all. But what we wanted was the discussion and not people just writing them down. Okay, so we wanted the discussion.
But if not, you're a trainer, so you could... I could give you a second to advertise and charge you.
And charge me for that. Imagine that. So government, it's the market access, the ease, economic growth. And we were just talking about economic shrinkage because of these things.
Yes.
The N is navigation, and of course the training. Now, no doubt we have what? 2 more hours? While we're running out of time.
We're actually out of time. We're actually over time.
I thought we had go to 8.
No, we go to 8, but it's way past 8 now.
Okay, can we just talk about the process? Because we haven't told
in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
Yes.
And guess what? What do you think I have again? Another acronym. Process. Another acronym. The P is we have to plan. We have to prepare. Do not just wake up tomorrow and decide on Saturday I will start a small business.
So research and surveys and all
the
that.
R is the research.
Okay.
But plan. Where is it going to be, boy? Who else does the thing? The research, that's the R. You have to also ask yourself, do you have the resources to do this? And if you don't have those resources, where can you accumulate or procure same? Okay? Is it going to be a loan from a bank? Are you going to beg
Angel investor.
Yes, or are you going to ask one of your
Parents,
or are you
put
going to
up the
ask
house.
are you going to ask one of your financiers, sugar daddies, whatever the case is, sugar
Oh, dear
mommies, whatever source you tap into, okay? Then you have to start organizing roles and responsibilities. Oftentimes, a downfall, a main downfall of a small business owner is thinking that he or she can do everything. There's nothing wrong with getting some advice, seeking some guidance, and don't worry if you have to pay for it. Pay for it. Once you consider return in the long
down
time.
the road, yes.
Because to go and ask you as a consultant, hey, what do you think about? You're providing services.
And they expected to give it for free.
No, not at all. I tell people all the time, TDC sells blocks. If you want blocks, are you just going to go in there and take them out? You have to buy them. So if you sit down with Laverne and Keynes and start discussing, massaging and masturbating a potential business idea, that's a service she's providing.
Well,
Okay?
you know what happens in small islands? People say, well, you know, I will, you scratch my back today, scratch yours tomorrow.
It's okay. I have a gadget that I put down. I can scratch my own back, okay? Now, the C, of course, is capital, customers, competitors, credit. You must understand that during the process, where you're going to put it. For example, some fast food franchises, you know, you can place one of them
within a certain proximity.
Yes, there you go. Then we have the E in the process, evaluation. So you put all of your ducks in a row and you decide on this date, I will execute. We move to the S, proper structures, proper systems in place, proper staffing. And then the last S in the process is sustainability. Because if you're not able
and you've
to
used that word so many times
yes,
tonight.
because to start a small business for 2 years, okay, you need to be adapting to the changes, you need to be flexible, you need to be agile, you need to be able to transform that starting out as a micro business into a small, into a medium, into a large, and a long-term company where we might get royalties for this presentation that we did today. Okay?
Is that how you're ending?
Yes.
So I want you to use, Mr. No, I want you to use the next, we are over time, but we're going to wrap up now, the next 50 seconds to summarize, because I'm glad that we got the feedback that people wanted to see what some of these acronyms mean. It means that you have a captive audience.
And they're listening to who? Diane Sawyer?
I'm not Diane, I'm Laverne Keynes. I'm not Diane Sawyer. I want to be me. I don't want to be anybody else. So clearly we have a captive audience, and so, you know, we promised that we would share some of these acronyms later
all
on
of them.
On the party's page. But if you have been listening as a young person and you think that you found something from which you can springboard your thoughts, or something, some plan you had in the back of your head, we are glad that you were able to join us tonight. I want to ask Noah to just give a quick wrap in about, I gave you 50 seconds, just now we'll take back some in 39 seconds to bring all of this together, and one last push to encourage our young people not to be afraid of jumping into entrepreneurship.
Let me create another acronym. ACT. 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 And you have to actively pursue your idea. Believe in yourself. That's the A. The C, however, you need to be cautious. You need to be cautious of the fact that the market is unpredictable. You need to be cautious that persons might be trying to steal your idea. So even that little conversation, you decided to bounce it by somebody.
Yeah.
If they have the resources, they might steal it. And you need to be timely. Timely in when you launch your business, when you start your marketing campaigns, when you introduce new products and new services. However, if you act that and you're successful, you'll have a beautiful life as a small business owner and operator.
And you're talking from experience.
Well, you spanked me and said I don't have any grandchildren, I don't even have any children. But if that's the measure, I have failed. But that's not the measure. I've been on my own for a few years now, and it has been a wonderful experience. I have gotten opportunities not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but across the Caribbean, multiple islands, as a small business.
Okay. So clearly we could also make you the poster child of success as an entrepreneur. But ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for watching this 15th edition of Perspectives. We know the time really flies when we are getting down with good information, but it only makes you want to join us for the next episode. We're not sure yet what that would be, but we could assure you that as ever, you won't be let down because we bring only good presenters on this program. We want to thank you so much for joining, and we hope that you have found the information that was shared this evening to be useful, and that you'll come back again on the next occasion when we'll bring another captivating presenter. Of course, you can meet Noah with my permission and ask him whatever you will for free after this show has ended. Just one reminder as we wrap up that the walk, the annual walk that the People's Action Movement engages in for September or Independence is on Saturday. The starting point is at Keys, I think, at 5:30, and the walk heads into constituency number 1 and ends there shortly after. Well, no, not shortly after, but whenever it wraps up, because I guess they would wait until the last man or woman gets in. So we hope to see you on the walk on Saturday. And we're reminding you as well that our secretariat is open on Saturday between 10 and 2 p.m. Those of you who have not yet paid your membership dues, you can do so then. If you want to contribute to this program, you can do so. If you want to contribute to our press conferences, whatever it is you want to engage us in, we encourage you to come in on Saturday between the hours of 10 and 2, and you'll find a representative of the party here to engage you. Thank you so much, and until then, have a wonderful night.
We love to serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness, we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay. To serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and